Let's just do it all over again, right? How many takes do you need, Shauna? Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, or perhaps you're watching on YouTube. I appreciate you. Wherever you are in the world, whatever it is you're doing, my hope is that, just finished all my water. My hope is that you are healthy and happy and enjoying life. Today, I would like to talk about the idea of judgment. Before I get into that, I will share that I will be drawing a card from the Spirit Animal Oracle as we get closer to the end of this recording. I also want to say that it is Wednesday, September 28th, and Hurricane Ian is approaching the Gulf Coast of Florida, about to wreak some havoc and drop a lot of water across the state. I have friends in different areas of Florida, and to them and to everyone else in that state, my hope is that you ride this storm out safely. And I know this is going to sound really funny to say, but that there's minimal damage, but we shall see. Was there anything else that I wanted to say before I begin? I don't think so. Last week, I was listening to two spiritual teachers, and one of them brought a quote that I found. I don't know if it was it wasn't an actual quote. It was just something that one of them said that I'm saying as a quote now, that really hit home for me, that sent me into this place of introspection and reflection. And for those of you who listen to my recordings, you know that I love when I'm offered a really powerful, open-ended question, thought-provoking question, or a quote that sends me into my practices of introspection and reflection, and this was one of them. The quote is, "We are always in the frame of judgment." The frame of judgment. I paused. I wrote it down on this piece of paper here. For those of you listening, you can't see the paper, but you just heard it scrape across my microphone. We are always in the frame of judgment. Let me say this. I'll start this way. Whenever you or I are pointing the finger in judgment or anyone or anything outside of ourselves, that is an ideal opportunity to go look in the mirror and take a deep look at ourselves, right? So it's about me taking a look at myself when I'm noticing judgment, when I'm being judgmental, and it's about you doing the same when you are noticing that you are being judgy, to then go look in the mirror. Now, my personal opinion is that self-awareness is one of the best practices that anyone can experience or participate in. It's that willingness to look at yourself. And for many people, that is just not the case. There's no sense of personal awareness or emotional literacy or that ownership or responsibility of their own thoughts, words, and actions. So that willingness to look at myself goes a long way in me being the version of myself that I prefer to be and moving closer to my true core essential self. That version of me, the core true version of me that's underneath all of the conditioning, right? And judgment is part of that conditioning. We all have been taught how to be judgmental. So I want to talk just a little bit about this today and share with you a couple of recent experiences that I have had in the way of being more mindful of my own judgments and the intention and the practices that I have to stop them. Right now, it's more about that idea of noticing them as they happen so that I can release them quicker. But my goal is to be the type of person that doesn't even have the judgment come up, okay? So 2 examples. Here's the first one that I want to share with you. My husband and I are watching the latest series, the most recent series of The Great British Baking Show. We love this show with Prue and Paul. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix, I believe. There is an older woman contestant or participant, and her hair is so expressive, colored all like pinks and purples, and she's lovely. What happened the moment I saw her, and this is just one example, this is just something that's happened recently, that's why I'm using it, and it's what I thought of intuitively. When I first saw her, I noticed judgment. I don't need to say what that judgment was, but I noticed judgment. Yet I caught it immediately because I am in an active practice of catching my judgments more readily. The moment I caught the judgment, I began the process of releasing by becoming very curious as to what was going on. So there's a question I ask myself all the time, and that question is, in this moment, what am I experiencing? I invite you to take that question along with you. In this moment, what am I experiencing? That question helps me to become grounded in the present moment. And I realized immediately that I was in judgment. And then I moved on to, okay, can I let this judgment be here for a moment? Can I just be curious about this judgment and get to know it a little bit? Sure, that was no problem. What I realized was that I was judging her self-expression. Here she was doing her hair this way that really spoke to her, expressing herself in a way that was fun and playful for her. And here I am on my sofa judging her. When I recognized that, I realized that I was judging myself for not being as expressive as she is or was being. I imagine her hair is still fun and playful. Maybe she did it for the show. Maybe she always has it like that. What I'm saying here is that I want to do something fun and playful. Like, there are ways that I want to be more expressive of who I really am. Recording these videos and these audios, this is a way of me expressing myself, just like she was expressing herself through her hair, but yet there I was in judgment. But that helped me to recognize that there are other playful ways of expressing myself that I've been holding myself back from doing. So instead of looking at that judgment of myself, I brought that judgment outside of myself by pointing my finger at her. I didn't literally point my finger at her, but in my mind, I immediately judged her. So that's one example of how everything is an inside job. Nothing is outside of ourselves. Coming back to that idea of, if you're pointing the finger of judgment at someone, that's that opportunity to look within. How are you judging yourself if you are judging someone or something else? And how is that making you feel better about yourself by judging someone? And what would you be thinking about? And I'm going to touch upon this in a moment. What would you be focusing on if you weren't focusing on judging things outside of yourself? Let me come to my second example of judgment and how I've been judging myself. there is a situation happening around me outside of my home on my street. And I've noticed that I've been giving that more mental attention than I need to be, really. I'm not part of the situation, but I'm giving it more attention. Now, let me just back up here for a second. I've been taking an online course. And I got to a certain module that was hard. It was difficult. It brought to my attention something that I have been working on or avoiding, if I'm going to be very honest with you, for the past several years. I know that it's something that is in front of me for the last and final time. I need to move past it. I need to move around it. I need to figure this out. And I'm saying I need because I know I cannot move forward personally or professionally until I figure this part out. I've been in a place of avoidance, and here it is, front and center again. While going through this module of this course, I began to engage more with it because I know this is what I need to do to move forward. But I also ran away from it. I did not look at the course or listen to any more of the course for a period of days. Coming back now to the attention that I was giving what is happening outside of my home, and in that there was the processing of what I perceived to be happening, but there was also judgment. I was looking at a situation, judging it through my own perspective, my own wants, my own needs. I mean, blah, 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 blah. It's ugly. Like when I feel into it, I'm like, oh, Shauna. When I realized what I was doing, which didn't take very long, I came back to my practices of curiosity and honesty. What's happening? I turned my attention on me. I turned my attention within myself. And the first thing I asked myself was, if I was not giving this situation outside of my home so much mental attention, what would I be thinking about? What would I be focusing on? And the answer was the course you ran away from. The course, the module that got really hard, that's what you would be focusing on. Getting a little bit more curious, I asked myself, where am I judging myself? Because I know that if I have judgment outside of me, it's because I'm judging something within me. I allowed the honesty and I allowed the answers to emerge from within me. I was judging myself because I ran away from the course. I was judging the fact that I still haven't figured this thing out after several years of having it in front of me and knowing I needed to do it. It's something for my professional advancement, and I've been avoiding it. So I was judging myself for not having figured it out by now, judging myself for not being intelligent enough to figure this out, not having what it takes, not being articulate enough, not being good enough. And so much of this was an unconscious pattern of behavior, this ancient pattern related to and rooted in ancient stories of fear and negativity, lack and limitation that show up in the way of avoidance and judgment and distraction. When I realized what I was doing, because believe me when I tell you I can be my own worst judge and jury, the self-prosecution, the self-punishment, the self-criticism that I have experienced throughout my life, that I still experience even today, can be overwhelming. So why not stuff all that down, keep that buried, and instead I'm going to focus my attention out here. And I'm going to talk about these people, and I'm going to judge this situation, and I'm going to create all sorts of stories in my mind around this thing going on out here. Because if I'm focused on this thing going on here, then I certainly really can't be focused on what it is I truly want to work on. And that is my own personal and professional development. We are always in the frame of judgment. Are you on a journey to release judgment? Are you trying to be a more, I don't want to use that word trying. Let me rephrase that. Are you intent on being a more conscious human by not having judgments on others and yourselves? If so, here's what I have to offer you. Continue your practices of self-awareness, moment to moment throughout the day. Every chance you get, take a moment to become more aware. That question, in this moment, what am I experiencing, is a really powerful question that helps you get grounded in the present moment and helps you understand where you're at energetically. So taking the idea of judgment, noticing and speaking the truth honestly to yourself. I am being judgy right now. Asking yourself, is this the person I prefer to be? And if the answer is yes, well then continue on with your judgment. If the answer is no, then you can start to get curious about what's going on within you. And 2 questions, I've already mentioned these questions. The first one would be, I want to put it this way. Well, maybe I don't want to put it that way. Let me come back. So I'm going to let that one go. Let me just let that one go. Here's what I want to offer you. Asking yourself, in what way am I judging myself? What's going on in my own life that I have judgment around? What stories are being spun in my head? What am I avoiding? What am I distracting myself from? In what way am I judging myself? And it may have nothing to do with what it is you're judging outside of yourself. That's what I want to try to get across here. Here I am focused on judging something that's happening right outside of my home, but all the while, oh, this is my home. Wow, isn't that interesting? Something happening outside of my home, my physical home, that I'm judging, but yet there is something within my own home that I'm judging. Okay, I just did a little processing with you, my own personal processing. So that's what I would ask you. That's what I would ask you to do. The practices of being in questions, living in questions, the awareness, self-awareness all day long, your willingness to be in the present moment all day long, your willingness to ask yourself the empowering questions, even if those questions lead you to an uncomfortable, more challenging place, right? So oftentimes when we look within, not oftentimes, I mean, I don't have numbers for you here. I don't have statistics. Speaking for me personally, there have been many times that I've started to look within, and as I'm honest, I realized just how sucky of a person I was. And it's yucky. Like, it's just not a good feeling. But then I remember that I'm evolving and I'm growing and I'm doing the best that I can, which helps me to bring it all back to that heart-centered place of love and compassion and understanding for myself. So that's what I would like to offer you today. The idea of judgment and how you can know yourself more truly and more deeply, how you can live the life you prefer to live and be the person that you prefer to be by becoming more aware of when you are in judgment, so that you can be in a practice of either releasing the judgment or coming to that place, making your way to that place where there is no judgment. That, my friends, is becoming a more conscious human being. That is enlightenment. That is ascension. Okay. Let's see what the spirit animals... Wow, look at that. That just flipped over right as I was shuffling. Let me hold it up for the camera for those of you listening. It is Snake Spirit. Card number 55, Time to Heal. All right, so Snake Spirit showed up, flipped over in the deck. I love when that happens. The message is time to heal. The snake brings, first of all, it's a symbol of the feminine, but it also brings the message of shedding the past and being in the practice of radical self-acceptance, which I think is a fantastic message right now. So let me explain a little bit more. We've been conditioned to be judgmental. We were taught how to judge. We weren't born judgy people. That is something that was taught to us. That is part of our conditioning. And we can, if we choose to, begin to shed that conditioning as a snake sheds its skin. On the other side of that is that radical self-acceptance. And this goes along with what I was just saying about when we look at the shadow sides of ourselves, when we can be really curious and honest with what's going on within ourselves, it can lead to, at least it has for me personally, this idea of, wow, I really was a sucky person. Like, that is just an awful thing I discovered about myself. And this is where the radical self-acceptance can come into play. It's the idea of the self-care, the nurturing, the heart-centered love for yourself, because you're evolving, you're growing. If you're listening to this right now, I imagine that you too are on a journey to be a more conscious human being. You're on your journey of ascension and enlightenment. You are doing the best that you can. We were all conditioned. And now you've gotten to the point where you're ready to shed that conditioning. And part of that is that self-acceptance. I'm going to accept the fact that I had that judgment. I'm going to accept the fact that I've been judging myself in this way. And I'm going to allow that to transform. And that transformation is healing. What a beautiful message that Snake Spirit brought to us today. I know those of you listening can't see it, but I'm holding it up to the camera. One last time, card number 55. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5s is all about change. Okay, so where is my book? Oh, it's right in front of me. This deck is from Colette Baron Reed. It is the Spirit Animal Oracle deck. This is like one of my favorite decks. So if you're curious, I encourage you to go look up this deck and check out the cards. It's an absolutely beautiful deck. All right, that's it. That's all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching or for listening. I really do appreciate you. Know yourself. Know yourself. And be in relationship with yourself first.